William H. Fletcher, attorney at law. The buzzer on my intercom rarely scares me, but it often frustrates me when it sounds a time when I'm on the cutting edge of a problem and about to make a breakthrough. Such was the case this morning. I pressed the button and answered, trying to contain the sarcasm in my voice. Yes, excuse me, Mr. Fletcher. Miss Sally Fletcher is here to see you. Sally Fletcher is my 16-year-old daughter. I was surprised to find her in my office as she was supposed to be at school. Send her in. The door opened and I saw my secretary Eileen as she had a strange look on her face and rolled her eyes when she saw me. Stepping aside, my daughter entered the office. Eileen stepped out and closed the door. Miss Fletcher, why aren't you in school, and how did you get there? The outfit my daughter was wearing was definitely not her usual school clothes. Instead of a pair of worn jeans and shirts, he was wearing an expensive women's business suit, pants, white toe-pan blazer. Her shoes matched the suit, and from what I could tell she had heeled loafer shoes. She wore glasses. That was odd in of itself. She had contact lenses. I'd never seen her ear glasses before. Her thick brown hair, instead of hanging loosely, was tucked behind her head in a bun. I got the impression that she was one of those intransigent female executives who work 2 floors above me. If you must know, today is teacher work day for teachers. I thought it was a great opportunity to come in and hang out with you guys for a bit. In answer to your second question, I took an Uber. And what pretel do you want to talk about? Should I take you to lunch? Go shopping? Brushing off my feeble attempts at being witty, Sally leaned back in her chair, crossed her legs demurely at the ankle and smiled. Daddy, I want to have a serious talk with you about our family. My eyebrows flew up, and I looked at her with what she probably interpreted as a hint of disdain. Really, if that's your intention, then go ahead and start. She nodded. She pulled a large manila envelope from the bag she had placed on the floor next to her chair. Leaning forward, she carefully placed it on my desk. I think you should take a look at this before we begin. There were no visible markings on the envelope. I undid the metal clasp and peered inside, fumbling for a stack of papers. I pulled them out into the table. The first page was white with just my name in the middle. It turned the pages towards me and began lazily flipping through them, not paying any attention to them on the surface. It looked roughly like a court transcript. I'd know what they look like, since I am a practicing attorney. When I flipped through the last of the white pages, and a 2025 black and white glossy photograph came into view. I almost choked. The picture showed a man and a woman having sex. My eyes flew upward, and my voice strained. Sally Angelica Fletcher, what is this abomination, and why are you giving it to me, Daddy? That was the first time I heard venom in her voice. Maybe you should take a closer look before you make statements and declarations, I growled, but she gave me sound advice. You should always know exactly what you're dealing with before getting emotional. I picked up the top photo and took a closer look. A queasy feeling in my gut arose. Almost as quickly as my mental understanding, the man in the photograph was me. As wallowed as my mouth suddenly filled with excess saliva. The memory kicked in, recalling the day the picture was taken. Raising my eyes to my daughter, saw that she was smiling sweetly. Yes, Daddy, I know all about your adventures. All the details are in that packet, along with phone calls, audio recordings, and a flash drive with a fascinating video. As a lawyer, I always try to act calm and collected, no matter the circumstances or situation. I failed to do that. Where the hell did you get that? Did your mother put you up to this? I'll have her skin nailed to the garage door. Calm down, Daddy. You're not very good at being angry. For your information, I'm the one who collected everything in that folder. This is the 21st century, Daddy. You can buy all your equipment on the internet. There's so much information on how and where to get information, and everything you need to know about divorce laws in this state. I assume you're knowledgeable about them. I stared at my 16-year-old daughter as if she had just stepped off an interplanetary spaceship. You, but how? Why? For me and Bud. Bud is Sally's 10-year-old brother. For Bud, neither of us wants to live in a separate house. Well, like having you and Mom in the house. I thought I'd make sure you don't do anything stupid like file for divorce while Bud and I are still living at home. Once we're gone, you can do whatever you want. So you're going to blackmail me? Basically, yes. Stunned is not the word that best describes me. Closer to that would be shock. I've had to deal with attorneys who weren't as confident or in control as my daughter was during negotiations. Flipped through her information. There was no doubt that she had done a thorough job. What are you suggesting? As fair as no, Mom knows nothing about your affair with Sarah Phillips. I intend to keep it quiet. I have terms of agreement. They're listed in the packet. Basically, you stop lying to Mom, and I won't give her all the information she needs to make your life hell on earth. From what I understand, adultery is still grounds for divorce in this state, and usually the process is heavily tilted in favor of the partner in the marriage who did not cheat. Most property divisions are 7/5/25 in favor of the woman if the man cheats, and that includes any business that the man owns. When's the rights to this means you would have to sell your partnership and give her half the money. Of course, there are other things including custody and visitation provisions. Even under those circumstances, a father should be proud when his child shows such finesse and understanding. Still, I had to be on guard. There was a possibility that this whole exchange could go nuclear and redefine my entire life. What are you suggesting? You stop your fornication and never do it again, until Bud graduates from high schools, speaking of which you fully fund 2 college accounts for me and booting our names with an independent trustee for Bud. I'm going to go to court and get my emancipation. You can name me as trustee of my college fund. You will stay living in our home with your mom and represent yourself in every way as husband and loving parents and devoted partners. And if I don't agree to this blackmail, everything in this package and much more will be made available via email and downloadable digital media for your full list of partners, employees, and your client email list. It will also be sent to your personal mailing list, including the reacher and your parents. The information is already in the cloud on multiple servers and will be automatically forwarded unless certain actions are regularly taken. I thought she's a sneaky little... I'm so proud of her. She's going to be a great lawyer someday. But there were more serious matters than secretly triumphing over my daughter. Looks like you've put me in a situation where I have no other choice. That was the plan, Daddy. Then I must agree in a few days. I'll send you all the necessary documents and an official list of demands. I'll expect it back signed and notarized. If I don't get it 5 days after you get it, I'll pull the trigger. I nodded. She didn't offer a hug or even a handshake. I watched as she picked up her bag and walked away. Constanted the Fletcher, certified public accountant. It was well past tax season, so my schedule was as flexible as it usually is. Sitting in my office, I glanced casually at 2 computer screens that constantly displayed current market conditions and some technical data for several stocks. I was tracking the indicators were showing the possibility of a strategic move in one of the stocks. I made a mental note to keep a close eye on it for the next few days. I was about to go into more detail when I heard a knock on my office door. My secretary stuck her head in with as murky "Your daughter is here twos." EU Leather and Sally, my 16-year-old daughters, drove purposefully through the door carrying a leather bag over one shoulder. It was a pleasant surprise, but I had a few questions before I could begin. She sat down in the chair in front of my desk and smiled at me. Her glasses gave her a much more mature look than usual. Her hair, gathered in a bunded knit, softened her appearance in the slightest. The pantsuit she was wearing was surprisingly similar to many of mine. She looked much older than her 16 years. "Why aren't you in school, young lady?" "Teacher work day it though. It would be a good time to stop by to discuss some things with you." "Well, I happen to have most of the day free. Would you like to go to the mall? We can shop while we talk." "I think it would be better if we discussed this in your office, Mom." The word at the end of the sentence sounded slightly reproachful. I wasn't sure I liked the way it sounded. "It's okay if that's what you want, go ahead." By then curiosity had taken me by the tail. I couldn't wait to find out what was bothering my girls so much that she'd come all the way downtown to talk to me about it. Sally reached into her bag and pulled out a large manila envelope. She placed it on my desk and I pulled it toward me. "Should I look in it?" "I think you should." Before we start talking, nodding, I undid the clasp on the envelope, flipped it a pen, and the contents spilled out onto the table. The top page was blank, except for my name, Constant Fletcher, in the middle of the page. I didn't pay much attention to the rest. It was the pictures that caught my attention, and I pulled out the top. Upon gasping, I brought my hand to my mouth before I could say anything. A sudden muse as whipped over me as I looked at the photo. There I was in all my glory. Roger was standing behind me. I looked at Sally in horror. "Where did you get that?" "Relax, Mom. I collected all the data contained in this packet. It's amazing. What you can find out on the internet. The hardware was mostly from Amazon. Getting some of it was a little difficulty. You know, you really should learn how to close the curtains in your hotel room when you decide to spend the evening with your lover." "Ow, I meant that room was on the 8th floor for the first time." Sally smiled with a touch of satisfaction. "It wasn't that hard to learn how to fly a drone well enough to do a little surveillance." I looked at the damn picture again, glancing at my desktop. I saw that there were at least a dozen similar pictures. Sally continued. "The rear transcripts of phone calls, texts, and emails in this packet. There's a thumb drive with videos and of course pictures." I definitely felt bad. Not only did my daughter catch me cheating, she also documented tall in every professional manner. Her dad would be proud. I'm sure. I looked there again. "But are you going to do about it?" "That's what I want to talk about. There's a list of things in this package that I'm going to insist on, and that you have to agree to." "Like what?" "First of all, you will immediately end your affair with Roger McMillan, and never again engage in any liaison affair or one-night stand. If find out you've done this, everything I've gathered will be distributed to all of your clients, the board of your corporation, all of your friends and parents." I gasped. She was going to blackmail me. "Why? What do you want out of this?" I want my family booed, and I want 2 parents in or how. Say, acting like parents and supporting us like parents. You'll keep our family together. Acting like parents until Bud graduates from high school. After that you can do whatever you want. I looked at the stack of materials on my desk. My brain was in active problem-solving mode. I was considering all the options, trying to come up with a risk-benefit solution. Mom, if you don't agree, this will happen. All the data is in the cloud on multiple servers set up to work. If some things don't get done regularly, our set will happen automatically. My child certainly had a knack for planning. She had everything streamlined and organized. I was boxed in what are my options, accept my terms or I do the reset, and Daddy gets the first packet of information. It occurred to me that this might be more of an opportunity than a problem. I needed more time to think about it. So I decided to procrastinate. How much time do I have to make a decision? I'll email you the agreement tomorrow. You'll have 5 days to think about it. If I don't receive a signed and notarized agreement in 5 days, the data dump will begin. I'm a little relieved. A lot can change in 5 days. Okay, chuckles. 3 days later, Bill Fletcher's locked in his offices, staring morosely at the piece of paper in his hand. It was a contract sent by his daughter outlining her demand. She studied the document several times. In the copy he held in his hand and in the other copy laying on the table, notes were made in the margins systematically. He noted the items on her list. This affair had ended months ago, and he hadn't had another mistress since. That part of the deal didn't bother him as much as Sally's threats to expose his story to Constance in the world. Divorce and such exposure would ruin him professionally and financially. Asking him to finance his children's college education didn't matter that much. He would do it anyway. And setting up trusts could provide some tax advantages. The requirement to continue to stay home and raise his children wasn't onerous. Some people thought the loved being a father. He found happiness in being actively involved in his children's lives. As Bud was approaching the age where he could participate in competitive athletics, Bill looked forward to several years of soccer and base games. All in all, from Bill's perspective, what his daughter was asking for didn't seem like such a bad deal. It gave him an incentive to stay away from vicious liaisons. Sith had been kind of turbulent around the house lately. Maybe if he started acting like a parent, things would get better. He called one of the girls from the secretariat, who was a notary, to bring her book that same day. Constance sat in her Boomer in the parking lot outside the office building that housed the accounting firm she worked for. Reaching over to the console and pushing aside some papers, she pulled out the cell phone, stored there. Dialing the number, she waited for an answer. Good afternoon, beautiful mind, playing a little game. I'm sorry, Roger, I have some bad news. We're done. I'm throwing this phone away after I remove the battery and SIM card. I don't want to hear from you or see you again. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the phone. Thought we had something special. Not as special as you thought. He scratched an itch. Roger, I like you. You're a good guy. But things have happened in my life in the last few weeks that complicate things. This whole affair has become like an anchor, and you need to get back on track. I just can't believe it is that at a phone call and 8 months of relationship together is over. Don't be sad, Roger, and don't whine. It doesn't suit you. We had fun, but I have to think about the future, and you're not in it. Goodbye. Roger, disconnecting. Constance opened her phone and took out the battery, then pulled out the SIM card and broke it into small pieces, making a few stops on the way home. She bought a macala to wrap the battery in a paper napkin, to toss it in the wastebasket in the drive-thru. Walking into the grocery store to buy Hicken for dinner, she had the opportunity to toss the phone itself into the commercial waste container in the back of the store. The small pieces of the SIM card she simply tossed down the drain and rubbed with the two of her shoes. Mealing Constance got into her care and headed home 5 days later. Sally sat in a coffee shop near her school. She had her laptop open on the table, causing her to sit with her back to the wall where Noon could position themselves. There were also 2 envelopes on the table, one from her mother and one from her father. On the laptop screen was a Bill's perspective, what his daughter was asking for didn't seem like such a bad deal. It gave him an incentive to stay away from vicious liaisons. Sith had been kind of turbulent around the house lately. Maybe if he started acting like a parent, things would get better. He called one of the girls from the secretariat, who was a notary, to bring her book that same day. Constance sat in her Boomer in the parking lot outside the office building that housed the accounting firm she worked for. Reaching over to the console and pushing aside some papers, she pulled out the cell phone, stored there. Dialing the number, she waited for an answer. Good afternoon, beautiful mind, playing a little game. I'm sorry, Roger, I have some bad news. We're done. I'm throwing this phone away after I remove the battery and SIM card. I don't want to hear from you or see you again. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the phone. Thought we had something special. Not as special as you thought. He scratched an itch. Roger, I like you. You're a good guy. But things have happened in my life in the last few weeks that complicate things. This whole affair has become like an anchor, and you need to get back on track. I just can't believe it is that at a phone call and 8 months of relationship together is over. Don't be sad, Roger, and don't whine. It doesn't suit you. We had fun, but I have to think about the future, and you're not in it. Goodbye. Roger, disconnecting. Constant opened her phone and took out the battery, then pulled out the SIM card and broke it into small pieces, making a few stops on the way home. She bought a macala to wrap the battery in a paper nap and toss it in the wastebasket in the drive-thru. Walking into the grocery store to buy Hicken for dinner, she had the opportunity to toss the phone itself into the commercial waste container in the back of the store. The small pieces of the SIM card she simply tossed down the drain and rubbed with the two of her shoes. Mealing Constant got into her care and headed home 5 days later. Sally sat in a coffee shop near her school. She had her laptop open on the table, causing her to sit with her back to the wall where Noon could position themselves. There were also 2 envelopes on the table, one from her mother and one from her father. On the laptop screen was a